Hi.
Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful.
Well, I'm home. After a really extraordinary trip, a wonderful journey in the footsteps of Henry Alexander Wickham. Hero, maybe, maybe not, certainly a hero of mine, because he is the James Bond of botany. He's the 007 of rubber, and his interest and his competence with this species changed the history of the world.
I was born in the wrong century. That's what my friends tell me, and I'm afraid they're right. I should have lived in the 19th century, when most of the world still had to be discovered. I should have been one of those brave men who left the safety and warmth of their homes to explore the blank areas on the globe, those places where no white man had ever set foot. Without those men, the world would not be as it is today. Believe it or not, but my fascination for my British hero Henry Wickham started with a film, a German film. It must have been more than 30 years ago that I bought these 2 canisters at an auction in Oxford, and within it, parts of a film called Kautschuk, or rubber in German. Mind you, we are watching Joseph Goebbels' favourite action movie, made in 1938. Hero in action, Henry Wickham. How on earth could a Cockney boy end up as a hero in this Nazi movie?
Am 21. fährt die Victoria von Liverpool nach Para. Mit diesem Schiff wird mein Vertrauensmann. Sein Name ist übrigens Henry Wickham.
Ich will keinen Namen wissen.
Well, we could say he was the most famous thief of his time. In 1873, Henry Alexander Wickham, an ordinary working-class boy, was commissioned to go and steal seeds from the rubber tree in the Brazilian rainforest. A secret botanical mission for the British Empire. So that would make Wickham an early James Bond, with green fingers. Well, time to take it from the start and see where it all began. I travelled to Manaus, the city in the heart of the Brazilian rainforest that owes its existence to the rubber trade. Up until yesterday, the easiest way to travel to Manaus was by boat. I have 2 objectives for this travel. I really want to learn how to tap rubber, and I want to find the place in the rainforest where Wickham found his famous rubber seeds. And the start is very promising, for on the docks I meet Wickham's American biographer, Joe Jackson.
I really admired your book.
Oh, and I admired yours so much too.
Good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too.
It was here that the young bachelor Wickham landed after having spent a few years in the jungle trying to make a fortune. Nobody had heard of him yet.
And when he first came here, he was ill.
He was very sick when he made it down here. And when he came here, he just thought he was going to go back home. He didn't think that he thought he was a failure. It actually was not wasted time for him because he was the only Englishman or the only European that anybody knew at that time who had actually tapped and smoked rubber.
It is important to realize that Wickham at the time was as brave as he was naive. He wanted to be an old-school explorer, contacting unknown tribes in the heart of the jungle. His plan was to finance his trip by shooting birds for his mother's hat shop. The colourful feathers were the fashion in Europe.
Because he never found the unknown natives, And every time he shot a bird, it exploded in a ball of feathers. And, you know, his mother didn't get very many good feathers out of it.
So in the heart of the jungle, the young Wickham had to look for a new way to make money, or fail.
He wants to be a success, though he doesn't really know what he wants to do until he starts hearing people talking about going out to tap goma, rubber, and they're going to get rich off of goma. And so he follows the Orinoco down, and he found this place where he thought there were like 1,000 rubber trees, and he was going to tap 1,000 rubber trees, and he was going to be a plantation owner, and he was going to be very rich. Instead, what happened was that he got very sick off of malaria. The human black fly laid its eggs in him, and he had worms that were coming out of his back. He came very close to dying, so, you know, he was a failure at that. And so, but he did make enough from tapping rubber that he was able to pay his way back down to Manaus.
Suffering from malaria and having failed in all his attempts so far to make a fortune, Henry could not have predicted then that his rubber tapping skills and knowledge of the rubber tree would prove to be crucial for him. His only success was that he was still alive, and that was more than many fellow adventurers could say. Coming to the tropics to seek a fortune was gambling with your life. Half of all the Europeans here died of malaria or yellow fever within the first year.
Lo comprendo, è difficile.
When young Henry Wickham, more dead than alive, arrived here, Manaus must have looked like this. But within 20 years, the whole place exploded. At the height of the rubber boom, Manaus was nicknamed the Paris of the tropics. People here became rich beyond belief. And some of the rubber billionaires decided to build a monument to decadence in the city centre, the Grand Opera House. Imagine the contrast. Thousands of miles of jungle, and then this. Time to freshen up.
I think Wickham, when he walked out of the forest, he was probably dreaming about this. At least this would come at the end of the list. First of all, any kind of wine, just the roughest sort of food that might include a tomato, things you yearn for when you're in the jungle. And then bath, and then this would be the final pleasure. And the army told me, just never ever try and shave in the jungle, lad. Go septic at once. The only part of you can keep clean is your teeth. Oh, lovely.
Lying here, I wonder, would I have risked my life like Wickham did, living in the jungle just to earn some money? But when we walk up to the Opera House, I realise that young Henry was right in his gut feeling that rubber was the future.
Yeah, it's upstairs where you have to put on the slippers and kind of like skate around on the wood. And you're kind of buffing the floor when you're doing. Okay. It's easier just to slide.
Look at all the wealth. The Italian marble, the French paintings, the Venetian glass. It's hard to imagine now that all this is the result of millions of hours of milking trees in the heart of the jungle.
I'd read that more diamonds were bought here than anywhere else.
More diamonds than...
Yeah, at the time. I had heard a story about how men's hats were at a premium. Hats designed in Paris, I think it was. And this one rubber baron bought 35 or 36 hats and shipped them over, and everybody thought they were going to get a hat.
Yeah.
But he kept 4 for himself, and he threw the others into the river while all
he
of
wanted to be the only man with the top hat.
Right, that's right.
There were even myths that thirsty horses were fed champagne by their owners, and millionaires lighted their cigars with dollar bills. But Wickham didn't get any of this wealth, much to his regret.
Well, I think he would love to be here. He'd be so happy.
It's Henry
to be
with
here,
his
to be celebrated.
with his
But he
curled
won't be celebrated here,
mustachios.
but yes, in Covent Garden, perhaps.
Oh, great!
But I think he's got to go now.
We arrived at the town of Manaus, La Barra, on the 3rd of September. The town has a very thriving appearance, still does. It's situate on ground of a very unequal surface. Two of the large English-built Amazon steamers lay off the town and looked very suggestive of a return to civilization. And so Wickham returns. He sails off to familiar civilized London from Manaus, but in Belém, he meets the British governor. And the British governor tells him, if you, with your unique experience of rubber, return to Brazil and set up your own plantation, you will be the richest man on the river. That promise changes his life. Back in London, he's determined to succeed. He marries the girl he loves, Violet, a true Cockney, drawn here by Wickham from the back. And he publishes a book about his travels, complete with drawings. And this book contains a botanical treasure.
This is Kew Gardens. In the 19th century, the centre of the universe, if you were a botanist. And this is the place to meet people who know a very great deal about Henry Wickham and rubber seeds and rubber.
I am going to meet the rubber man in England, John Lodeman. As a writer and rubber chemist, he is a regular guest at Kew Gardens, where in their treasure rooms they keep the first rubber objects that ever reached Europe in the early 19th century. Toys, flasks and gaskets, all made of this new and unknown material. You have to imagine that in those days rubber was magic. And John tells me that here in Kew Gardens, one soon realised that for the British Empire, this waterproof and elastic goo was going to be valuable beyond measure.
At all, gaskets.
Vital for industry.
For anything. If you look at the, you take your tap apart at home, you look at the connectors for your plumbing, all got rubber gaskets in there.
But
you
this
go
in
to steam
19th
pipes,
century railways.
and heavy industry again. I mean, the Industrial Revolution could not really have functioned
Without rubber.
You could not have the pipework to carry the steam, the pipework to carry the water, the pipework to carry fire hoses. A simple concept, but probably in terms of quantity, one of the biggest users of rubber that there was.
Yeah.
So the demand for rubber in England was immense, but there was a problem.
Samples like this, typical sample of rubber, an awful lot of dirt inside it. We put that through sophisticated machinery or into gaskets, and you're going to get leaks or damage your machinery.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a photograph of rubber being collected in Manaus, I think, where they're cutting all the bales of rubber in half to see they haven't put stones in to increase the weight of the rubber because they're paid by weight.
Yeah.
Kew Gardens had to make a move to secure the industrial development of the empire.
Saying, we really need to do something about this material. We've got a fortune on our hands. The British Empire can really thrive on it. Let's move it to somewhere where we can control it, we can build plantations, and we can get good, clean rubber.
So, where did Wickham come into play? Well, remember the book he wrote? This book fell into the hands of Joseph Hooker, the director of Kew Gardens. And there was one illustration in particular that drew Hooker's attention.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. It's our So here we have a drawing in Wickham's own publication from 1872. And this is his drawing of what was discovered. You know, he has all the main kind of aspects that they needed to identify this plant.
And this was the first drawing of it,
yeah,
yes?
Yes, and that's what impressed Joseph Hooker, which is why Hooker contacted Wickham and asked him to collect the seeds.
And Hooker read this book. He found the drawing in this book.
Yes. In fact, this book might even be from
in
Hooker's
this very book here.
Collection, potentially.
So these 2 pages changed the history of the world by giving
Absolutely.
the Brits
Yeah.
rubber.
Seit einem halben Jahrhundert braucht England Kautschuk, der allmählich einer der lebenswichtigsten Rohstoffe geworden ist. Kautschuk ist aber ein ausschließliches Monopol Brasiliens, denn leider kommt ja für die Wirtschaft nur der in den Urwäldern Brasiliens wachsende Gummibaum in Betracht. Damit ist aber England in eine für uns unerträgliche Abhängigkeit von Brasilien gebracht.
Kew Gardens desperately wanted seeds to start rubber plantations of their own, so Hooker needed a secret agent to steal the rubber seeds on behalf of the British Empire. It so happened that Wickham had convinced his newly wedded wife and about 10 family members to join him in his attempt to become a rubber baron. They started off as pioneers near the city of Santarém, where the river Tapajos joins the Amazon. When Hooker realized that Wickham was the right man in the right place, he immediately contacted him. No Englishman knew more about the rubber tree, and Hooker could be sure that the lower-class Wickham would deliver, because he needed the money.
Well, here's Santarém, and it's exciting because we're going to meet a friend of Joe's, Gil Serique, and his grandfather met Henry Alexander Wickham.
This is my friend Redmond O'Hanlon.
Hey, very good to see you. Wonderful.
It's an honor to meet you.
It's an
Thank
honor
you.
to meet you.
Finally. Let me help with this.
Oh, great.
All right, in we go.
Walking up the hillside with Jill, I realize I'm only 2 handshakes away from my hero, Henry Wickham. But Jill's grandfather helped Wickham to collect the seeds for Kew Gardens. And now, 140 years later, Jill has promised to do exactly the same for me. Find the best rubber seeds. But first, he takes us up to the plateau overlooking the town where the newly arrived Henry and his wife Violet must have started their first pioneer settlement.
This is the place that Violet and the Wickhams lived.
What, right here?
Yes, right here, because this is the view that they used to have. And this is also the place in which, well, as I can see, the mortgage palms, that's where they used to go down to collect water.
Oh, that makes sense, because she would always say that she would have to walk down to bathe and walk down to get water.
It's a hell of a way.
It's a hell of a way, and she didn't exactly put it in those words, but I mean, it was a real torment for her.
So in your book, this is that, yeah? And looking down the hill, is that it?
That would be, well,
And
look,
Violet,
there's the river.
she's poor woman, sitting with her back to him. She doesn't
Right.
even draw
Right.
her face.
We never
But
see anything.
Do you
we never
think
see.
she loved him? I mean, how did all this happen?
Well, I
Poor
think, I
thing.
mean, she wouldn't have known what it was really like when she got here, and she came here right after they got married, so, you know, this was not much of a honeymoon for her.
Well, I've got a copy of Violet's diaries.
Henry's
Very revealing, and Wickham's wife, and she begins it like this: born within the sound of Bow bells, and therefore a thorough Cockney, my first experience of bush life was very like being dropped into deep water, never having learned to swim. And he must have been extremely persuasive, bringing her out here on, was it their honeymoon or what?
Well, they had. You have to understand, they just got married right before they came out. So, and Henry had convinced Violet and his entire family they were going to start a new world. They were going to be planners. They were going to be rich. Here's a picture of his family right here. Here's Henry. Look at Henry. He's dressed in bush clothes. He's got his knife on his side. He looks like he's living the adventure, right?
Yeah, probably Burton is his hero or something.
Right. And here's his wife, Violet. She's looking kind of sick. She's just a small little thing.
She doesn't look at all happy.
No, she doesn't look happy. And so, I mean, these are all completely Victorian people.
Well, yes.
And just like Violet said, they were dropped into this world having absolutely no idea of what they were getting into.
Yes.
And by the time this photo was taken, this photo would have been taken in Santarem, I think. By the time this photo was taken, her mother, Henry's mother-in-law, would have died from either yellow fever or malaria. And even more devastating for Henry was the fact that he had talked his mother into coming out, and his mother had died by then of yellow fever.
What a tragedy here. 5 graves. Wickham's mother and 4 other members of his family. As the initiator of this adventure, Henry must have felt responsible and maybe guilty, though he never mentions anything of the sort in his notes. However, the fact that he sat down here and made this detailed drawing touches me deeply. There are many ways to die here. In Wickham's time, the tropics were called the white man's grave. And this reminds me, this white man might have to take some precautionary measures, because tomorrow we will leave for a 500-kilometer week-long journey on the Tapajos River. We go south to meet people that live in small settlements on the banks of the river and still make their living from wild rubber in the rainforest. I swear I only wanted to buy some bananas on the market for our trip. But as you know, I love pills and medicine. And there it was, the local pharmacy. Dozens of barks, roots and seeds and plants and trees that will protect or cure you. All the medicinal treasures of the rainforest. I just could not help myself. It may seem hocus pocus, but take, for instance, quinine, the only cure for malaria in Wickham's day. It is an extract of the bark of a tropical tree. So there may be some more unexpected truths and benefits in these bags of twigs that I buy.
And what is this for? Everything. Have that too, then.
I leave the market with my trolley full of jungle medicine. But there is no medicine against rain, I'm afraid. Within a matter of minutes, one is soaked here from top to bottom. But I have an appointment that can't wait, just outside town.
Well, while we wait for the Sakaka, as it's called here, the sorcerer, the fetisher, to prepare, I hope, a fetish for me, I'll read you a very powerful little passage from Wickham's notes. I recollect one afternoon as I lay prostrate and incapable of moving, and part of my back bared to the swarms of sandflies which filled the air. That's agony, I know. At that time, a woman entered, and seeing my condition, she passed her cool, soft hands gently over my burning brow and back, brushing away the plagues. Although unable to thank her, I think I never felt so grateful for anything. The Indians firmly believed my sudden seizure to have been caused by a sight of the little pale man of the forest, whom they say is a little elfin sprite. When visible, it is supposed to be the sure precursor of evil to the unlucky beholder, if not his death. They all considered me at that time to be a doomed man.
Hello.
Hey, miss.
Hey, Obrigado. Great.
I have a slight déjà vu sitting here, and I wonder what it is with me that one way or the other, I always end up somewhere in a hut, disgustingly naked to the waist, undergoing some exotic treatment. Maybe I am just making up for my youth as the son of a vicar, for I have always hated the arrogance of global Christianity and their claim to the truth. That may explain the fact that I have a weak spot for these do-it-yourself priests, with their own charming mishmash of Latin and animistic mumbo-jumbo.
Olha, isso daqui, eu vou falando, você pode usar para onde você quiser, no mato, no caminho, no remágio, na viagem. Nada lhe acontece coisa nenhuma, nem curupira, nem cobra, nem outros malfazejos, nada. Sim.
The fetisher has managed one thing. It has stopped raining. And before I say goodbye to Joe Jackson, he insists that I meet one man who might know more about the place where Wickham found most of his seeds.
I'd like for you to meet my friend Redmond.
The old man shows us a huge tin can, and it takes a while before I understand that he is talking about a tree up in the highlands upstream that is so big that it gives 18 litres of rubber milk a day. And that's a lot.
Aproximadamente 7 homens atracados.
7 adults could fold their spread arms around the trunk. And when I ask where this mother tree is to be found, the old man starts drawing a map. And the only thing I can think of is that Wickham probably didn't have any more detailed information than we are getting here. So this is it? A map? I'm sure we'll find it.
Obrigado. Thank you very much for a real treasure map. Well, look, Joe, thank you for sharing all your knowledge.
Well, take care.
Bye then.
Travel safely.
Ah. Yeah, it's a bit... obrigado.
Finally, we are on the river heading south. As you know, I can sleep anywhere, but still, the best place to sleep is on the water in a hammock. When I wake up, we are already hours on the way, and we make a short stop in the middle of the river to shop for our dinner tonight.
Redmond, this is very good for the piracaya, which is the...
Oh yeah, I've eaten this beautiful sunfish
party.
thing. Yeah, beautiful
We're going to do on
golden.
the beach tonight.
Ah, beautiful colour. Wow. And the barbels that are much smaller than I thought. It's huge.
No wonder there are so many fish here. The Tapajos River is huge. It's like a lake with a vast current, 20 kilometers wide. According to our map maker, we have to go upstream, south. But now that I see the scale of this river and its forests, I start to worry a bit about the details of our map. Is this going to bring us to the legendary mother tree? After a few hours, Jill stops the boat to show me something.
So Redmond, I'd like to bring you inside this little forest here and show you something amazing about rubber trees.
Ah, well, that's great, because I know nothing about rubber trees.
Jill is a manic, energy-packed guide. Before I've asked him, he takes me to a site where he can show me the difficulties Wickham had finding the right trees. Jill takes me to a species of rubber tree that is closely related to the real rubber tree from Wickham's drawing.
Every year flooded.
And a botanical know-nothing like me would walk right past it.
That's a spruciana.
This is?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, look at this.
Well, I've never seen one before.
The sap oozes. Actually, most of the trees
extraordinary. I've
bear
never seen that.
sap. Most of the trees bear the sap, but the importance of the Hevea brasiliensis is that the content of rubber in its sap is 30-35%. I mean, all the other species, we're talking about 10-15%. Look, huh?
But this looks like 100%, the white. Yeah?
No, that's a spruciana. There's a lot of water in there. A lot more water, a lot less rubber than Hevea brasiliensis.
What do you think the rubber is actually for, the latex? Defense against insects?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, not only insects, but any hurt, any harm they do to the tree, the sap
closes it up.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, here's the seed. Here's the seed of Hevea spruciana. See, it's very similar to.
Only longer.
A little bit elongated, a little bit more than Hevea brasiliensis. So it was very confusing those times to know which was which.
It is very confusing.
Yeah, they're very similar.
If you were in Kew, you'd just think this was a long seed. First time.
I always do that.
Yeah, I'm impressed. So similar.
Very much indeed.
No one but a real botanist would know. So this is not the right place, and these are trees not just in the lowland, but it's the trees that like to be flooded. So it's quite different. The real difference is the habitat. Is that right?
Oh yes, the habitat for the real rubber tree is on mainland. It's not on the floodplain.
No. Wow. Well, it would explain why there are...
So it's not as easy as I thought, rubber botany. I'm more of a zoologist, or so I like to think. But just as we want to head back to our boat, high up in the trees, Jill spots the mammal that comes as close to a plant as possible, the three-toed sloth. It hardly ever moves.
How amazing, I would never have spotted that. So the algae growing, making its coat green, actually camouflages it. Well, there's the slowest moving mammal.
It amazes me, how do they mate?
Jill knows this region in every detail. He was born and he grew up here. And a bit further upriver, there is a special place in the rainforest that he always visits when passing by.
The graveyard, my family's graveyard, is not very far. You need to walk here and turn left. And this is where my ancestors are buried.
Your ancestors are here?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
We got 4 families of Sephardic Jewish are buried here.
A Jewish graveyard in the rainforest. So unexpected. Jill's grandfather, who is buried here, came from Morocco. The rubber trade brought people from all over the world to this godforsaken place. German and American investors lived here, next to former slaves and indigenous people.
I like the written in Hebrew. I can't read it.
You can't read Hebrew?
No. My father used to speak it, but he never passed that to us. Yeah, I wish I could read this.
Would you like to be buried here with your family?
I think I would. Not necessarily here, but I would like to be buried somewhere in the rainforest.
Yes.
This is rainforest, so that's... Yeah, I don't want to be buried in town.
Well, life in the jungle's hard, even along the river, yeah? I mean, all these seem to be young people. And Wickham nearly died of malaria 3 times, very close. So he would have been buried somewhere here. And then we wouldn't be here at all.
And I wonder who'd have stolen the seeds if he wasn't taking it.
Yes. Well, Wickham, he suffered from fevers often, or nearly died 3 times, and part of it is that you begin to hallucinate, have your terrible disconnected nightmares. And the vultures, I like them. They're very, very friendly. It's only that, of course, they have another agenda. They're not really being friendly. They don't like you for yourself. They rather that you died and they ate you. But nice to have them around. He didn't think so. The Zamora vultures, as he writes, were particularly troublesome at this halt. An Indian caught one with a baited fishhook. Plucking out 2 of the long tail feathers, he stuck them through the nostril cavities of the beak, one either side, so as to form a pair of ferocious moustaches. Released with a kick, the unfortunate bird, of course, endeavoured to rejoin the mob of his companions, who were totally freaked, which had been gravely looking on. But the more he tried to do so, the more they edged away from him, and at last took themselves off altogether. Good idea. Do you think, I mean, this so-called theft, taking these 70,000 seeds out of the country, a theft in which, if you think of it like that, your grandfather was a partner with Wickham, do you think that changed the course of history? Was that a really significant event?
Yes, I do believe, because when the seeds were taken, not only the natives were given peace,
yes,
but without the seeds, or without England and the colonies producing so much rubber, the Allies wouldn't be able to win the Second World War, because rubber was absolutely indispensable for the Allies to win the war. I mean, that's what I believe. But if you have another story, you tell me. Because without rubber, there's no way the British would be able to win the war, or to stop the Nazis, stop the Hitler.
Well, that might seem a very bold theory of my friend Jill. But thinking it over, one certainly might say that Wickham's theft provided the British Empire with the key for their own rubber plantations in Asia, and these plantations proved to be crucial for Britain's industrial supremacy in the early 20th century. So, can one trace back Britain's role in the world wars to my hero? I must say, sitting by a comforting campfire on a tropical night, it is a very tempting thought. I had a bit of a short night after my beach barbecue with Jill, but still, I was up early and excited. For today, my first goal of the trip is going to be fulfilled.
I'm going to meet a rubber tapper, and he's going to initiate me, I hope, into exactly how you cut the tree without damaging it, and, well, the horrible process, I understand, of actually smoking the rubber. Get a little bit of, well, a feel of how hard this life is, but I hope not too much of a feel. Apparently there's a little shop here somewhere where you can buy rubber tapping equipment, and I rather fancy a knife. I want a knife. Por favor, Otto's? Otto shop? Otto? Is it up there? Yeah? I think he's taking me to Otto. Charming.
Seja bem-vinda, Cláudia. Próximo dali, Marília percebe que Fernando jamais vai assumir.
Ah! Sì, sì. Sì. Ah. Well, this must be the real thing. It's not what I was expecting. I suppose you cut the groove with that. Well, that'll be the pride of my collection. Well, we're all prepared.
My little guide tells me we can't meet the rubber tapper right now.
Probably having a well-deserved sleep because you have to tap the trees when the latex is cool enough to flow properly. So very early morning or very late evening.
So while I was waiting for my rubber tapping lessons, I realised that in 1873, Wickham really was the only Englishman in the Amazon with real knowledge of rubber tapping. No wonder they asked him to steal the seeds. But it proved to be a difficult mission. Joseph Hooker, the director of Kew Gardens, had tried to send someone else to do the job, but his agent came back empty-handed. So Wickham was their only hope, and vice versa. For Wickham, if he succeeded, this would mean a solid achievement at last. He would be paid well, but more important for him, he'd have a chance to move up the social ladder. The next step would be building his own plantation with the stolen seeds in the Far East. And that is a dream worth fighting for, if you are a Cockney boy.
Well, it's 3 in the morning and we're off to do some real tapping, and it has to be this time of day because the latex will run freely, and in the middle of the day when it's too hot it congeals. So you have to do it now or late at night.
My rubber teacher is called Benet. Every night, from 3 to 9 o'clock in the morning, he makes a 10-kilometre jungle tour to tap about 100 of his wild rubber trees, all spread out through the rainforest. And I must confess, I find the gun on his shoulder quite comforting in this pitch-black night, just in case my new fetish amulet won't protect us against the occasional hungry jaguar or an anaconda along the riverbank. Suddenly, Benet turns left, and there it is.
Vou cortar ela aqui, o que vai dar aqui 3 a 4 anos eu vou cortar ela baixando. Aí eu vou virar ao contrário o corte dela para ela pegar mais 4 anos, aí daqui eu não passo.
Well, just imagine how many drips go to make one pair of Wellington boots.
The first tree is still young, and it has only just started to give rubber milk. Benet does not want me to carve it. He's afraid I'll kill it.
Ah, grande.
The next tree is old enough for me to try.
Não?
No? Yeah?
Puxando já. Entendeu?
No wonder he didn't want me to do it.
Só que esse processo que você está fazendo aí, você está prejudicando a madeira, você está cortando no pau, é só encostando a faca e riscando. Aqui.
Ah, little cuts.
It's amazing that nothing has changed since Wickham's time. The tapping is still all handwork. There's just no other way to do it.
I've made a real mess of this tree. It's far more difficult than it looks, as most things are, but this is disastrous. Very sorry.
The old-fashioned way to preserve the rubber was by means of smoking it over a fire, like a huge marshmallow.
It's a weird thought that all the wealth in Manaus, that opera house, all based on this, going round on a stick, before it even went round on axles on a motor car.
Para eles fazerem uma borracha daquelas de 70 quilos, eles passavam 5, 6 dias fazendo o mesmo processo. Só que aí ela não ficava daqui, não ficava ele colocava num gancho para ela ficar rodando aí para poder ele ir fazendo essa borracha.
They did this 5 days in a row, you say? Well, I'm sure I wouldn't get out of bed on the second day.
Further up the river, the rubber middleman waits for the tappers to bring their harvest. Big lumps of raw rubber, the result of long, sleepless nights, and, as I know now, many tears shed over smoky fires. And I'm surprised to hear that these local tappers and traders still have strong opinions about Wickham's theft.
Bem zangado, eu me lembro disso com muita tristeza. Não, mas se hoje nós não temos mais os grandes seringais, querendo ou não, o culpado são o pessoal que levaram a nossa semente para fora. Porque aí a nossa produção caiu. Quer dizer, eles ludibriaram nós porque pegaram nossas sementes para fazer grandes plantios. Depois que começou a produzir, aí nós, ó.
Numa parte ela caiu devido a muita impureza que o pessoal colocava. Aí não tinha mais mercado também, né? E hoje não, ela está sendo examinada, ela vai bem limpinha, assim, sem impureza nenhuma, para ela nunca mais cair.
Para mim não é um herói. Herói se ele tivesse dado mais condições de vida para a gente. Então não posso chamar de herói, não posso tirar o chapéu com uma pessoa dessa. Nunca. Porque se a gente tal soubesse, nós não tínhamos escondido as sementes e não rendia. Porque ninguém não vai apontar arma para nós mesmos. Não é verdade?
Well, I suppose these men have every right to be angry. And of course, our hero is their villain. After all, Wickham did steal the seeds for Kew Gardens with the express intention of ending the rubber monopoly of Brazil. Nearly 140 years ago, on this exact riverbank, Wickham was looking for these rubber seeds. And guess what? We even have this season right. For only during a short time in the middle of the summer, rubber seed pods start to explode with loud cracking sounds. By experience, Wickham knew that then was the time to act, for the seeds start to rot within a matter of weeks. Then, in March 1876, there was a chance in a lifetime for Wickham, for the British ocean liner SS Amazonas came up the river with enough room to take back a shipload of seeds.
There was no time to lose. I struck back from the left shore, right here, for the deep woods, the Monte Alto, wherein I knew were to be found the big, full-grown Havia trees. So, just in a few days, he collected 70,000 seeds. Seeds that changed the course of history, and no doubt at all about that.
So, the most important aim of this journey remains to be achieved: finding the mythical mother tree that provided Wickham with most of his seeds. We have a map, or at least something that looks like a map. And we know from Wickham's notes that we have to go pretty far up into the highlands. I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but the feeling of following in the footsteps of a secret agent with green fingers is certainly deeply exciting.
Thank you for watching. For more on this subject, take a look at the playlist. You can also watch this recommended video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and we'll keep you updated on our documentaries.